Hey guys, Putzelman 945 here. Welcome back to another video. It's a very late video. I'm recording this at um 1 a.m. I don't know why I'm recording it this late. Well, I do. It's because I would have recorded it earlier, but I ran into Steam Deck problems. But none of that is relevant because today we are talking about Expedition 33. This video is my review of Expedition 33, which I finally finished tonight, about 20 minutes ago. Um, this game is amazing. Um, yeah, that that's that's where I'm going to start. This game is great. Um, did it deserve all the glaze that it got? Um, I'd say probably about 60% of it. 50-60% of it. I think it is a great game that has some issues. Um, Not huge issues, but definitely enough to be worth talking about for me. Um, and I figure that because the majority of my talk on this game is going to be positive, I figure I should probably just rip the band-aid off and get the negative things out of the way first. Um, the worst aspect of this game by far is the fact that there was not a map. This game desperately needed a map. And I genuinely don't know, like, if the developers of this game were just map allergic when they made it, because there are so many areas in this game where um there are like three different paths to go that all look the same. One of them will be the right way to go, and the other two will be like dead ends that might have an enemy at the end or a random item. And the amount of times that I got like hopelessly lost or wandered in circles around the same goddamn area for 30 minutes to an hour, it's ridiculous. Like, I feel like it happened at almost once per major area, which is just completely ridiculous. Like, um, this game would score a lot higher in my mind if there was just a freaking map in the game. And let me be clear, when I say that I wanted a map in the game, there might be some people saying, "Oh, but there was a map. There was the overall map." That map is fucking shit. Like that that map um that map was about as useful as a leaf on a wolf. Like, you're not getting anywhere with it. Um and overall, like, considering I also think that in terms of exploration, this game did not particularly know what it wanted to be exactly. Like, it's very clearly taking inspiration from old Final Fantasy games and such, where there is that kind of structure of semi like open exploration, like an overworld with large explorable areas. Um, But for one thing, the big difference is that those kinds of games, they have map. That's one big difference. But also there's like, in those kinds of games there is more to do, I think. Whereas in Expedition 33, I never felt that the exploration aspects of it were really rewarding. Like, um, sure, you can fight a lot of extra bosses and get extra items, but that's kind of it. Like, there isn't very much that is in that like might be a hidden side quest or something that reveals more about the world necessarily. Like, the exploration incentives don't feel that good in particular. Um, and as a result, this game is stuck as this strange middle ground between open world game and just linear progression, and it doesn't really match either one. Um, although to be honest, like that's much mm, less of a major complaint. It's like much more minor. Um, the fact that the exploration isn't that rewarding, because that's something I can forgive when, as I'll talk about in a second, the narrative and the characters were so goddamn good that that part didn't matter as much. Um, the just by far the biggest issue I had with the game is that it needed a fucking map, because it was just torturous um to navigate some areas at at like certain points without because just without a map. Yeah. Game desperately needed a map. I think I've kind of um uh sunk that ship pretty darn low now. I think the point has been received. Um Now, in terms of problems I had with the game that were not map or exploration related, I mainly have one aspect of combat that I'm going to talk about negatively before I talk about the rest of the amazing combat system quite positively. And that is because I did not like the concept of gradient attack. Um, sure, it's fun when the characters get to do themselves. But with regards to the enemies actually having gradient attacks, I think that this is a case of great idea, poor execution in a sense, because I don't I most of the time I find gradient attacks to just be extremely annoying and not like and I don't know, it just doesn't feel like a very satisfying game mechanic, even when your characters are doing the gradient attacks. Um, it just doesn't feel like a satisfying way to deal damage, and neither do gradient counters. Like neither one feels that good to actually do. And also gradient counters just had me frustrated a lot of the time. Um, because of the fact that oftentimes they were uh ridiculously difficult to time. Um, okay. Now, that's basically all the negative stuff. Honestly, I ended up talking about that longer than I expected, which I don't know what that bodes for in terms of how long this video is gonna be, but whatever. Okay, now moving on to the positives, which is going to be the rest of this video. Um, I am going to start with the combat system and important context for me talking about the combat system and this game as a whole. I played the entire game on story mode because I am an absolute baby who likes easy difficulties. I fully accept this. I wear absolutely zero shame for, in fact, I consider it a mark of pride, and therefore I will not be affected by any shit if in the comments if this video gets any calling me a wuss for playing on the easiest difficulty. Um, and I also mention this because I think it does affect my opinion of the combat as well. Um, so aside from the fact that I was not a fan of gradient attacks, um, I really liked this turn-based combat system. I really enjoy turn. This is just a very simple thing. I really like turn-based combat in general. Um, and the dodging and parrying and the jump mechanic as well, like those sort of active elements of the system were very interesting. Apparently, it's not the first game to have done a system like that. Although it is the first game that I have played which features a system like that, and so I think it's cool. Um, I was way too bad at the game to try parrying, so therefore I stuck with dodging for like 99% of the game. But even then, especially in the near the end of the game when the enemy attack sequences start to become a lot more varied and confusing patterns, it feels extremely satisfying to like get the patterns down and know when to dodge them. Um and of course the actual turn-based combat like itself, like the going in turns was great because I like pretty much any turn-based combat system as long as it is not an active time system. What is an active time system? It basically is turn-based combat, but if you don't move, then the enemy will make an action regardless instead of waiting on your turn and then you wait on the enemy's turn. I could do a whole other video, although I probably won't. But I could do a whole other video on why I'm not a fan of active time turn-based combat systems, but that's not really relevant for this video. The main point is that I loved Expedition 33's combat system like I love turn-based combat system that is not active time. Um, so I really enjoyed the turn-based combat in Expedition 33 for that reason. Now, um, I do want to talk about each character's abilities in terms of fighting because I think this is an important point to touch on. Starting with Gustav, I really wish that he didn't die in Act One because he was definitely my favorite character to play as in Act 1, due to the fact that, his whole, like, lightning gauge thing was extremely simple, and that's probably the point, given the fact that Gustav is the first character you play as. I think it was designed so that he's a relatively simple character to understand. Um, Oh, okay. Sorry about that pause. I had to blow my nose. Which is really annoying me. Okay, so we talked about Gustav. He's meant to be the first character you play as, and so he's meant to be the simplest mechanically, I think. Um, and then you introduce Lune, who is like the magic user of this game, essentially. Except he has a very interesting and yet complicated mechanic where she has these I don't know what they were called, like stone things, which if you combine them together, they make her magic more powerful based on like the elemental things mixing together. It was quite a confusing system and one that I don't really think I ever got the hang of properly. Um, Mael was a fun one for a lot of the early game and mid game because of the whole stances aspect and how that affected affected the kind of attacks that you would do. Now, late game, Mael, once she unlocks the painter abilities, just becomes uh ridiculously fucking OP. To the point where the only reason that I ended up winning both the creation mini boss fight and outlasting Renoir's second phase in the very final boss fight is because of Mael and the fact that she gains like twice the HP of the max of all the other characters. It's honestly kind of crazy. um but at the same time it doesn't become any less fun to play with and the stances mechanic was really cool. I think I kind of managed to do it a little bit. I'm going to say that that one's like a 50-50 for me in terms of knowing how to use it. And then we have Verso who's introduced once uh Gustav dies. I didn't really like Verso that much at first, but I grew to appreciate his perfection system because it's actually one of the more simple ones. And if you get a good lineup of moves, which sort of has variety between the ranks that that move is good for, then you can build up his arsenal to be pretty solid. Um, After that, is uh TL. And TL might have been my favorite character to play with. She had this mechanic where if you hit a move that had the sun and the moon card, then you combine that together for a foretell effect, which gives her a ton of buffs, makes her attack stronger, um, and it lasts for a few turns and stuff like that. And you can get CL to do some pretty absurd numbers of damage. Um, and then, of course, last but certainly not least, there is Monoko, who has my favorite like individual combat mechanic. I think, despite the fact that CO is my favorite to play with, I think Monoko had my favorite mechanic, which is that like after you unlock him, if when you defeat various enemies with Minoko in your party, you get access to those enemies masked with um Minoko can wear to transform into that enemy and use an attack of their own against other enemies. It's a very, very unique system. Very cool. Extreme amounts of diversity in terms of the ability setup you can have for him because of the fact that there are a lot of different enemy masks that Minoko can collect. Um, and yeah, that covers all the characters' combat abilities, and that's about me done with talking about the combat. Um, I will very quickly mention that, of course, this game graphically looked amazing. It's made with Unreal Engine 5. So the graphics look amazing. And I think it was pretty well handled for an indie team. My dad, who played the game, did not have a good experience with it because his high-end PC, the game was just not optimized to run correctly on that kind of system. Ran very good on my Steam Deck. The only noticeable hiccup being the fact that the hair lost all texture and just didn't really have any color and frequently just looked like a white blob, which was kind of funny in its own way. Um, and then the music, everyone fucking knows the little bit of trivia about Lorian Testard was like a random SoundCloud artist they found. That little trivia tidbit is it has already become my opinion. It's like in Lord of the Rings, someone says that Viggo Mortensen's scream is because he stubbed his toe while kicking the rock. It's like that level of um trivia at this point that is so common, and yet people still like to point it out like nobody knows it and has never heard it before. But um that being said, the soundtrack is masterpiece level, like one of the all-timers of just incredible video game soundtracks. I don't know where it ranks in my top 10. I don't want to think about it right now. I'm too tired. It's probably in the top 10, I think. Um and just the soundtrack was an absolute masterpiece. Every single song was just straight peak. Um uh and also the voice acting, my goodness, incredible work. Um One of my favorite Andy Serkis performances, obviously his best one is Gollum, but he's thinking of a parallel to Lord of the Rings, funnily enough. Um, his best role is Gollum. I will continue saying that for the rest of the time, although Renoir, his performance as Renoir puts up a pretty darn good uh, challenge, I will say. Um, And I feel like that is a good way to transition into characters. And because I mentioned Andy Serkis, let's talk about Renoir first. Renoir was a fantastic villain. In the beginning, he is extremely mysterious with the way that he wipes out everyone except for Mael, Gustave, Lune, and Ciel. Um and then there is more revealed about him um as you see how he is like how he's supposedly clinging to the immortality of the paintress. But then it's eventually revealed that his character is a lot deeper than that, and he's a a deeply flawed person who was only trying to be the best dad that he could and preserve his family together um and especially like the later reveals about the family stuff that was very powerful. Renoir was a just fantastic villain overall. um Um, character wise, Gustav was incredible for being an Act One only character. He was extremely supportive of all of his friends and um, personally, my favorite moment of Gustav in the entire game is right when they land on the island and he's about to shoot himself before Luna stops him, because I thought that was such a powerful moment in terms of representing the brutality of the expeditions and also Gustav as a character representing this idea of doing what needs to be done even if he doesn't want to do it. Um Lune is definitely one of the more simple characters, but I really like I really like the fact that she is a simpler character because she is very often the voice of reason in the group, and it's fun to see her play that role. Um, CL was also great, one of the more simple characters, but I loved CL because of the way that she served as a very good friend to everybody. Minoko was really funny, had a lot of great quips, and I loved his friendship with Verso. And and he had a nice voice. I know that's not accurate to what his voice sounds like whatsoever, but um he had a very very nice voice, and he was just a funny guy who had some interesting like past that was explored in terms of he did not really know his purpose and he didn't know what he wanted to do, but he found a cause to believe in well, by joining the group. Um, uh, and then Esquier, man, Esquier is just the go. Like Esquier had so many just utterly hilarious lines and random sound bites that were just all absolute freaking gold. Um, um, and yeah, just such a funny character, and like the way that he slowly becomes more involved in the group, like when he wears the patch that of Expedition 33 is just really, really wholesome, and I really, really enjoyed it. Um, now I kind of I saved the two big ones for last, Verso and Maya. I'm gonna go with Verso first. Um, so Verso is a extremely layered character who's introduced as this very, very mysterious um guy who will not reveal much about himself until it's revealed that he is like the son of Renoir, the sister of Alicia that appears in Miles' nightmares, and um and the reveal that like the world that they are in is Verso's canvas, and it's the only like remaining aspect of him that is still alive. Um, that was a crazy plot twist, and it did a great job of adding a lot to Verso as a character. Um, and yeah, Verso is great because of the fact that he is extremely layered. Mael, in my opinion, is by far. the best character in the game because she's just immediately likable, and he has a personality that I think is very easy for the player to relate the most to, and like become the most passionate and supportive of her cause in specific and her efforts, even though they are working as a team. Um, and then of course there's the whole reveal that, like, it the game builds up this mystery of like, who is Alicia? Why is she looking similar to Mael? It's because Mael is Alicia, and that was a fantastic plot twist with a lot of great build up. Um, and it really like sort of completed Miles' character to become a very complicated character. Um, now, I don't really. I mean, I've already mentioned a lot of major details with the story itself. I don't really want to go into a lot of depth with the story because number one, I've already spoiled a lot of major plot twists in the story that were just fantastic aspects of the story as well as the characters I just mentioned. Um, but at the same time, I think that uh this story is one that I think a person could better describe by experiencing it themselves. Like, I don't think I could really do my experience with the great story of this game justice by talking about it in this video. So I'm not going to go too deep into story for that reason. Um, the last major thing that I wanted to touch on, and um it's going to be the title of this video. Like, whoever watches this is the title of the video that you're going to see. Um, my ultimate discussion of this video, and the main point that I've been thinking about the most as I've played through the entire game, is is it my game of the year from last year? And basically, that means, do I like it better than Donkey Kong Bonanza? And this is a really hard thing because I've gone back and forth several times. Um, and to be honest, even now, as I'm recording this, I'm still not exactly sure of a decision. But I'm going to list out the strengths of both and hopefully come to a decision. So, Donkey Kong Bonanza was my favorite game of last year until I played Expedition 33 because I was in love with the gameplay. It's got some of my favorite feeling gameplay. It was just so awesome to smash the crap out of literally everything. It was such a awesome and open exploratory area. The different layers were all like all so creatively themed. It was such a blast of a game to play. It was so satisfying to hunt for collectibles and figure out a particular puzzle, which would lead you to which would lead you to a solution. It felt great. Um, I think it's better than Mario Odyssey. As I've mentioned, I'm pretty sure I did mention that in the Bonanza video I made like 6 months ago when I originally finished that game. Um, and the thing about Bonanza is it did have a great story, though it obviously was not anywhere close to the quality of Expedition 33. Um, but what is hard carrying it is the fact that the K. Rool shit at the end of the game was so fucking cool, and it's got like one of my favorite final boss fights in any video game against K. Rool. Um, and whereas conversely, Expedition 33 also has a great combat system, but overall I don't find it as fun as Bonanza. And yet the narrative and characters are a lot better, in my opinion. And I think what this ultimately comes down to is the fact that even though it is extremely close between these two games, I think that I ultimately enjoyed the narrative and specifically the characters more than I overall enjoyed the combat and gameplay of Donkey Kong Bonanza. So, with that being said, my final verdict is that I do believe Expedition 33 deserved to win Game of the Year. And yeah, those are my full thoughts on Expedition 33. If I have not spoiled the entire game for you, then I highly encourage you to play it. If you have played Expedition 33 yourself as well, let me know what you think in the comments and whether you agree with my opinions or not. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I will see you later. Bye bye.